Emetzen muss doch besavig sie Wugem sein. Junge Menschen können nur solche Sachen alleine beschließen.
Sie kann noch einmal bringen Emetzen a schönem.
Emetzen a feinem.
Und a reichen.
Mit dir es. Schatchen, mir zu. Wo ist wo? Tu etwas tu. Schatchen, guck in dein Buch und such mir auch aus zu.
Scharchente, fühl mich schon gleich. Bring ihm zu mir, schmal lang und bleich. Bring mir da Ringel und tu es noch bleis. Die Kinder so werden groß.
Der Teute darf auf Armenien.
Die Mama darf erreichen, a Graf.
Und ich darf mein Abgemine abbochen mit wichtig und klug. Und schon scharchen mir zu. Heint will ich heint, tu etwas tu. Es kommt an die Nacht, lieg ich wieder und wein. Es scharchen schon zu mir alle.
Von wann an bist du so verinteressiert mit Chasson im Chave? Und ich hab gemeint, dass dein Nose steckt nur in die Bücher. Und du hast geworfen an Heugab in der Rebenson.
Was nicht? Wir haben einen einzigen Reben und der Rebe hat einen einzigen Sohn. Aber was soll ich nicht wollen das Beste?
Weil du bist an eurem Kind von an eurem Heim. Ist dem Erste, was Jente wird bringen, wirst du nehmen. Nicht also? Sicher also. Harl, aber Schruchpunkt war dir, a schöner und jung, a 60er mit 4, aber a Hasen, das ist stimmt? Stimmt! Mit Masel und mit Broche bist du zu begehen, und was wird sein als nein? Ich weiß nicht allein. Habe, ich hab ihm, guck wie sich geht, a langer, ich mein, a langer in der Breit, aber a Hasen, das ist great. Ungelebende Geschichte, also ist vom Brampen dick, und schlagt der Nichter, das ist dein Glück. Hast gemeint, bekommst a Graf, ich tu das Beste, was ich kann. An Jichis, ni Token Potschechis, mit a man his name.
Scharchente, sitzt doch allein. Ich bin sehr jung, es brennt nicht, ich mein.
Lass uns nicht vieren zum Chuppe wie Schoff und haben am meisten Sof. Kleibjente, Haid mit Rachmones, gedenk, bis euch a Kalle gewählt. Ich bin nicht der Harbe Benemones, ich seh der von Schreck und Weh. Scharchente, tu gar nicht zu, es brennt nicht Kopfzeit, hab schon gelernt. Spielen mit Feuer, wird man als Feuer brennt. Ist Bett unbedingt, regnet kein Regen, heint meine Freund, kriegt an mein Hand. Ach, Hasen von Hasen,
That is some group. So my job is an easy one, and that's to engage this incredible group. And from that reception, I can tell there's a lot of Fiddler fans here. Joel's sick of hearing me say this, but you know, it really changed my life at 12 at the Majestic Theater to see Fiddler change the trajectory of everything I was interested in. And 50 years later, to see the unbelievable production that he's put together with this group is sort of extraordinary, to see just how rich and layered. So I'm thrilled to be here, and my first question is for Joel. And I'm interested in sort of the Cliff Notes version of how this idea, this production came about, and how it came to you to create this a sort of Yiddish production of Fiddler.
It was really quite simple in that this version was written right after the Broadway success of Fiddler on the Roof, written by a man named Shraga Friedman in Israel. And it was not a particular success there in Yiddish, because I don't think that Yiddish was the language that they wanted to celebrate at that moment. They were involved in a new world, a new country, and new feelings of worth. And so they played it in Tel Aviv in Yiddish, which was the first time that they ever allowed a Yiddish-speaking production, and the people didn't like it. And he wrote it, I guess adapted it in Hebrew, and it was a smash. And I got a call about a year ago from this very talented gentleman. Is he still sitting here? Over there. Yes. Mr. Zalman Mlotek, who runs the Folksbiene downtown. And I knew him a bit. I had done some little things on and off. And he said, we're going to do Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish. Would you like to direct it? And I said, I love that show. I've seen almost every production there ever was. It always, I mean, the minute NYTF began, I'd be weeping. And I said, I don't speak Yiddish. He said, but you're Mickey Katz's son. That was the truth. We didn't speak Yiddish in my house, and my father was a great Yiddish comedian, but I never learned it. And the next thing I knew, I said, I'll let you know, I'll think about it tonight. And I did, and I called him in the morning, and I said, yes, I'll do it. Because I so believed in what Fiddler is about. And I thought, well, if I get great actors and great people to help with the production, designers and lighting people, and I think I can tell this story without understanding Yiddish myself. And what happened is that we had an enormous amount of people wanting to audition for this play. And I would say 3/4 maybe were non-Jewish speakers. And there was just a tremendous amount of excitement about it. And we chose the people, everybody had to learn a song in Yiddish to audition. And people, you know, either could cut it or not. And it happened very quickly that we just signed up 28 people who, in a matter of 4 weeks, learned all these songs in Yiddish and all the dialogue. And before we knew it, it was something that was probably not possible.
Let me ask a question, Joel, about that, because I know, Steven, you grew up knowing some Yiddish in Texas.
Abyssal Yiddish.
That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
What, Yiddish
Right.
in Texas or
Yes.
Abyssal in Yiddish, which is... what made you learn it then, and what was it like relearning it in the really incredible performance you give now?
Thank you. I did not learn it then. Growing up in the small town of Lubbock, Texas, I like to compare it to a shtetl because there were 100 Jewish families there, and we were a tight little circle, and I would go every Friday night to my grandfather's house for Shabbos meal, and I would hear him chant the Kiddush. And my grandparents would speak Yiddish as a way to obscure what they were talking about. So, I mean, that's not, that happens a lot. And so I had heard the Yiddish, but I could not speak Yiddish. And then I was bar mitzvahed in Lubbock, Texas, and I just knew in my heart of hearts that I never wanted to lose my knowledge of the Hebrew letters, and I wanted to retain that. And so later in my adult life, my brother and I, Joseph Skybell, the novelist, I just want to give a shout out to him. We decided that we would try and learn Yiddish by ourselves over the phone, and that took us only so far. And then one summer I was doing, I happened to be doing Wicked in Chicago, and I had some daytime. So I contacted Northwestern and said, could I please audit a Yiddish class there, and as it turned out, at that time, they were going to have the class, and then they didn't have a high enough enrollment to run the class, so the professor, Chana Fagel-Turteltaub, who was the Yiddish teacher, yes, offered to teach me privately in her home. So I did have a summer of weekly Yiddish lessons in 2006, so jump to this production where I was one of the people saying, please see me for this production. I just want to be seen for this production. I said, and so please tell them, one, I have worked with Joel Grey once before, and two, I speak Yiddish. So one was true, two was really not true. But it really was.
Does Joel know that, or is that the first
He
time you
fooled
heard this?
me.
No, Joel knows that. And, but then the Folksbiene, I mean, so you did have, again, you had to audition, and they sent you a tape of everything you needed to learn for the audition, and on the sheet it said, do yourself a favor, do us a favor, listen to the tapes. You know, so they really were they weren't fooling about, you've got to be able to pass for a Yiddish speaker, otherwise we're not even going to consider you. And so, so I did that, and they really whipped us into Yiddish speakers in short order. And every day I would come into rehearsal, and I would hear Jackie spouting all the Yiddish, and Fruma Sarah, the first day we did The Dream, was singing all this Yiddish, and I'm like, we got to bring it because everybody's speaking Yiddish here, you know. But that really is my story with my relationship to Yiddish. And even now downtown, people would come to me after the show and start rattling off in Yiddish to me. And I would have to apologetically say that I'm just a hired gun and I don't really speak it. But of course, I've picked up some Yiddish on the way now, Zalman, right? But I can't really say I speak Yiddish even today.
So, Jackie, I have a question for you. Two-part question. So, I know you, and most people know you as comedy. And Fiddler got a lot of very poignant, funny moments, but I don't think the role is, it's certainly many things other than comedy. And I also thought about the show is so much about the kind of tradition where the papas make the decisions and where but it feels like you bring a kind of gravitas to the role. And I'm curious about what that journey was like for you, is not doing something that's pure comedy and in a different language.
Well, I had a director who rode my ass, as they say. He was very on me, but that's what makes a great director. And especially now this last scene where I leave for Israel, and it just became this very poignant, dramatic moment. And Joel was like, I really think there's something here. We can expound upon it. She's sick. She's frightened. She's scared. She doesn't have, I treat everything up. Yeah. But I hate to say it. He's right. He's always right. And I was told both by Joel and by the director of a Broadway production that I auditioned for and miserably failed, that Yenta's really a businesswoman, and it's so rare in that time to not have children. I mean, it's just an extraordinary, unique character. in that way.
And you can feel the audience in that moment wondering what your journey is going to be when you leave. You know, it's very clear.
Yeah, I don't know myself, so I'm glad it's clear to somebody.
And so the comedy part, you found your way into that?
Yeah, the comedy parts are, it's always the easiest way for me to do, but I very early on, you know, before we went into rehearsal, I remember Joel was really, I want to talk to you about something, and I know what this is going to be. And so, you know, he said, it was just very simple. He thought for a while, and he just said 2 words, "She's not." And I said, "Don't worry, I won't be the shtetl clown." And so we just had an understanding that to go for the truth and everything.
Jennifer, a question for you, having done it in 2004 and now doing it again in 2 different languages, any sort of observations about how the pieces deepened or changed, or new observations about it?
Yeah, it helped knowing the show pretty well, I think, going into it and learning the Yiddish. But I've always been such a fan of the Sholem Aleichem stories, and I remember getting the audition notice and thinking this was just the coolest idea ever to do this show in Yiddish, and I couldn't wait to audition for it. But I do think it does add this deeper meaning to it. It's like you really do feel yourself transported to this little village in 1905 Russia, and it really has added so much more meaning to the show for me, and I think most.
And of course, we're living in this time of so much discussion of immigration and being homeless and being not welcome, that I think everybody identifies with our show in a deeper way than they might have 20 years ago.
More so than you probably thought when it began.
And the fact that I think, I'm not sure, but I think we have at least half of our company is not Jewish, and they speak perfect Yiddish, and nobody asks who does or who doesn't, or who is or who isn't. Everybody is committed.
In the form of a little bit of a segue, tell me about the meaning of the song, "Do You Love Me?" What are your thoughts about the meaning of that song?
I think there's been talk about love throughout that point in the show. It's love, and it's just something that I don't think Golda has ever thought about. It's never come up. Their lives are so busy, go, and then there's this moment, and he asks her, and then there's the journey of the song. But I think it's a moment to really take the time to answer and to look back at their whole lives, their whole relationship from day one, and what that is.
Yeah, I mean,
And they're so vulnerable in that moment that they're saying things to each other that they've never said before.
Yeah.
and Joel,
so much bad stuff has happened.
Yeah.
They're so at a loss with losing their children and with the Russians and the threat that all of a sudden they have to confront. Maybe they'll be alone together.
Right. Mm-hmm. I will say, working on this number especially, the entire musical, Joel's lens of how he saw the musical and what it could be, and in a way that perhaps had never really been unearthed the way hopefully we are doing it. But Do You Love Me is a real perfect example, because he had such clear ideas about what it was, and for anyone who knows the musical, and I'm curious to know how many of you have seen our Yiddish version.
Oh, wow.
Not many.
No? Well,
it was a
but
lot.
show of
That's not
hands,
very good.
Jackie.
That's not good.
No, the show of hands was more than the applause. But
Let's see.
That's called an opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I take
So
it
you,
back.
but you know, that, I mean, and those who know the musical Fiddler on the Roof know that Do You Love Me has a sort of notion that it's do you love me? And the wife freaks out and screams, and he asks, do you love me? And it's like electrocution every time he asks her, do you love me? And Joel really wanted to probe why is it there and what is it doing there?
Which
where it
allows
is.
the audience in that moment to ask that question.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think you guys could actually sing it right now?
Yes, we
Now?
could.
Is that possible?
Oh, now? Sure. I'm perfectly there. Is a guter Bocher, Golde. Gefällt mir. Is a bissel zerdreiter. Aber ungesam mit Joische von oben bis herab. Gefällt mir, Veal Kulam, Hadl. Wie steht dort geschrieben? O Hafti, will sie will ihn. To was kann man tun? Es ist eine neue Welt. Eine neue Welt. Liebe. Golde. Liebst mich, Serce?
Zie ich was?
Liebst mich, Serce?
Zie ich lieb dich. Für ein Töchter zu der Gruppe und es kocht bei uns in Haus. Bist schon ganz gut verdreht, geh in Stub, schlaf sich aus. Mr. leidst du von morgen?
Golde, ich will dir fragen eine Frage. Liebst mich, Serce?
Bist ein Narr?
Ich weiß. Aber liebst mich, Serce?
Ich lieb dich. Vor 25 Jahren was quascht dein Wäsch, Reib und Putz, Töpf und Mesch. Gerade wir Kinder, ich melk die Kuh, noch 25 Jahre, wann liebe dir einer du?
Golde, wenn ich dir der Zen in a lang weiß Kleid, zappeldick
Ich bin verschämt,
und mein Herz
hart geklemmt.
sagt mein Tate und mein Mama, als mit Lieben sich mistame. Darüber frag ich Golde. Liebst mich, Serce?
Ich bin dein Weib.
Ich weiß. Aber liebst mich, Serce?
Ich lieb ihm. Es ist 25 Jahre, was ich lebe mit ihm. Ich esse mit ihm, ich fast mit ihm. Alles mit ihm, bei Nacht, bei Tag. Ist das nicht Liebe, sag?
Liebst mich, Tage.
Doch sich mir so.
Is dacht sich mir, als ich lieb dich. Euch. Siz heint kein Chilik nicht, Gott siz allzeits. Noch 25 Jahr. Gut als man wist.
Wow. So a question for both of you in that case. When you're singing that song in Yiddish, is the thought process different than singing in English, in a different language? Do you find that it's a literal translation, or there's a different kind of meaning in speaking another language and singing it?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. I mean, just what it is to try and embody another language that is not your natural language. But in a nutshell, the challenge is what it is always to be an actor, is to take something that is not yours and really make it yours. And we did rehearse with the English and with the Yiddish, and back and forth, English and Yiddish, because our director didn't speak Yiddish. But he definitely he was determined that we weren't just going to phonate the Yiddish and think that was enough, and we had to know what we were doing. And our Yiddish coaches were very good about telling us, this is this word, this is this word. So even though the song is not always a word-for-word translation of the English, it's in the spirit of the English, but there are differences. For instance, an example is in the Yiddish, it's liebst mich Serce, and Serce is just like sweetheart or darling, and so it's not just do you love me, it's do you love me, darling, and so that he keeps saying that is a slightly different thing, and so you want to let you have to let that in as the speaker.
So, Joel, talking about detail and precision, I wonder if you could talk for a minute about the design of the show and the design team. I was struck by the power of the end of the first act, which was so simple and so brilliant. Can you talk about the design concept and the team and how that came about?
Well, we didn't have any money. So it was an interesting challenge. And I called upon some friends of mine that I'd worked with before to come and play with me, because we thought this was just a summer adventure, and a real adventure.
But of the $1 you had, you used 75 cents for the end of that first act.
Yes, we got a lot of paper.
And so, can you talk about the concept of that emotionally? Because I think it's one of those design moves that feels so organic.
Well, we wanted to refer to the paper of the Torah, and so their paper became the overriding design center, and somehow we thought that this is something that could be taken down and we could travel, and we were all going to be like traveling actors telling a story. And this was just a wonderful idea that Beowulf Borat had, and I concurred with him immediately. And then we hired or asked to join us Ann Hould Ward, who had such an interesting idea about the way people were dressed. And it was sort of a mix of period and contemporary and Williamsburg, and it was everything. And then Peter Kazarovsky came down and had like 6 lights to do the whole thing. And he struggled, and I was no help. I just couldn't, but he made it beautiful anyway. And then when we got to move uptown to this theater that had great stuff, he just made it so beautiful. Was that what you wanted to know?
It is, yeah. Jackie, a question for you. So I loved the show when I saw it. I went back and re-looked at the reviews and thinking about this, and one of the things it was singled out for, that's authenticity. Clear. And having been in it now 8 months, do you find a different experience now 8 months later in doing the same piece, and how you engage in it? Does that get different, or?
I find that there's there's more comfort, and yet there's more challenge. There's more challenge because of the repetition, but there's more comfort going into it and having done that so much. And I have like such a giving partner in Jennifer that it never gets tired. I know I'll always be able to count on Jennifer to be so giving. And it just, you know, whenever I'm feeling tired, I look at that beautiful parchment with that word Torah in Hebrew, and it's just all, you know, it's everything. It's such a pure thing, and it's dealing with the language of my mother and my grandparents, and there's just a purity about it and a beauty that'll never leave. And you know, I'm no angel. I'm like, get me out of here already, you know, sometimes, like every actor does. But it always comes back. It's really in my like our Yiddish teacher
I'm
says,
not sure
it's in my
Steven
notes.
thinks every
Excuse me,
actor does
how
that.
do you really feel?
Best Tevye Evye.
Tevye, I have a question for you. Yes. You've talked about the comparison of Yiddish and Shakespeare, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that and what your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, it's similar. There are two aspects that are similar for me. And one I already have addressed, which is just to say Shakespeare's English is not our 2019 English, and yet there is a way, and the places where I teach, Yale School of Drama, NYU, will be very happy to have a plug as well, because I do teach Shakespeare there. But you, as a Shakespeare actor, you have to, again, understand so deeply what you're saying that you can let any kind of curiosities in the English not be a stumbling block for an audience to go heart to heart with you, or even head to head. So that is a similar thing, which the Yiddish, I mean, the thing about the Yiddish, which is crazy, is that it really brought acting back to 101 for me, which is, I first have to learn my lines, and that's hard, just learning the Yiddish lines. And then I have to know what I'm saying. And then I have to know what other people are saying to me. So it's what acting is. It's like, it's not just, you know, it's not what we sometimes think, which is stand up and look pretty. But it's, you know, it's really a lot of work, and the Yiddish only made very clear that's what acting is you have to know everything that's coming to you, and you have to know what you're sending out. In terms of Shakespeare, the role of Tevye, and the joke is when I would meet with the Yiddish coaches, and we would turn a page and do the Yiddish, and turn a page, and it'd be like, wait, when does he leave the stage? And you realize that, and spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, it is one of those God bless us 3-hour musicals, which is worth every moment. But it is a hefty evening, like a Shakespeare play, and the role of Tevye experiences as much as some of the great Shakespearean roles, in that it's got humor, it's got pathos, it's got tragedy, and fire as well. And so, get me out of here, right, Jackie? No, I mean...
2 show days.
2 show days, right. Someone once did say to me, how do you feel after now you've been speaking for 6 hours straight? And when that was said to me, I was like, get me out of here. But, I mean, it's a joy. Tevye has been a role that I first played him when I was 17, and then when I was 21, and now I'm finally getting to play him age appropriately, and it is a role similarly to Joel, who has had notions about the musical. Tevye's been kicking around for a very long time, and so now to finally get to give him voice, and give him voice in the language of Shalom Aleichem, is a blessing beyond belief for me as an actor. And
for the audience.
Well, thank you.
So, Jennifer, you know, watching your performance in a musical, which is about conflicting views about tradition and shifting traditions, you manage to make the role sort of quietly the boss, which, given the sort of #MeToo moment we're in, fascinating. And I'm wondering how you go about how you go about it internally in the sort of tricky business of having that gravitas to make ultimately that role have that weight and presence?
Well, I think, that's what's so wonderful about the Tevye Golda relationship is that, they're a team and they usually make these decisions together, which is why, Perchik's marrying Huddle, whatever, they really are a team and they challenge each other, they do everything together, and I think she really, Golda, I look at her like she takes this step forward and then the girls just run with it, they just like they have minds of their own, and, so at that time especially, it was such a strong character for a woman.
I mean, I would just add,
Unyielding, that was unyielding in her support.
Yeah.
but she is the little general of the house, and in that respect, Golda is the Jewish mother, which runs the house, runs their lives, and I've always felt that Tevye, even with Rich Man, he's more of a Luftmensch, so that he's a dreamer, and he's a little more.
She has the upper hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
keeps it going, so she has her own relationship to tradition and what that may mean to pull it apart like that. But I also was struck only fairly recently you look at our new poster and everything, that it is in this moment. This is a feminist musical. Among everything else that it is a story about girls and women and the man that sort of is being circled by them. So it's such a pro female musical, I think.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah.
Our director was relentless with Jen also. She's like forgetting it like it was childbirth.
What?
I mean, he just beating you into louder, stronger. She's stronger.
Yeah.
She's running the house,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Jen in
All
life is
for
like,
good.
okay.
Not anymore.
Joel, let me ask you a question. You touched on what's going on with immigration, and I was thinking, one way you could look at this is the show is newly relevant in a way it hasn't been, or you could look at 50 years later like a great piece of art, it's perennially relevant, that it finds its way. Any thoughts about, because every production I've seen feels like it has this kind of newfound power, and it feels like that's something art is able to do, is find its relevance in new audiences.
Well, it's on the news every single morning into the night. These issues of immigration and children being caged. I mean, the things that we really just, at least I can't even imagine is happening in a world where so many other people have a decent life, but the horrors going on in the rest of the globe are just, you can't believe them.
But not only the rest of the globe, because while we were performing downtown is when the shootings happened at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, and we were able, with some fundraising that we were already doing for Broadway Cares, raise $15,000 to send to that synagogue and to the victims. And so again, the moment in Rich Man when Tevye says that if he had all the money in the world, he would then have time, and that means he could go to shul. That after that horror, it took on a deeper meaning, because obviously Tevye thinks that's my safe place. That would be my safe place. And so we've seen it even in New Zealand, but we also have seen it in Pittsburgh, that it is global, but it also is right back now in our backyard. And I do feel when I first experienced Fiddler on the Roof, I've said this before, but in the 70s, the inherent message was, Tevye, you're gonna be okay. You're going to America, and you're gonna probably make a lot of money, and you're gonna have grandchildren like me. And so it's gonna be a win-win. But because of the circular way of life, what was maybe felt solid and secure has not felt that way globally, but also in our country. And so that is an aspect of the musical that I think has only deepened with the passage of time.
Modern day pogroms.
Exactly.
Terrorist attacks.
For Jews and for non-Jews. I mean, that is, I think, why it's such a specific Jewish story in Yiddish that we're telling. People, non-Jews, are coming to our musical and being able to identify.
Has it been a challenge to get an audience to come see a musical in Yiddish? Was that something that at the beginning was a challenge?
I would have thought so. I mean, we never thought it could be.
It's a kind of a brave, big, bold idea.
Yeah, but it belonged where it began, and that made sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that it has been celebrated by non-Jews and by the general theater-going public as something that they own too. They join us in that and make their own references that are similar.
So this audience has a bunch of questions, which I have here, and I'm going to save the really rude ones for something else.
For me.
Jackie and I will talk about those afterwards. First one is to Joel. Do you miss being on stage?
Not a bit. You don't believe it.
And would you sing a little something for us?
He said no.
Yusel?
Not a note.
So to counter that, whoever wants to answer this is to all. Was Joel easy or difficult as a director? And you can tell the truth here. He's
right next to us. You can tell the truth.
I'll tell the truth. He is a great director, and he is a great actor's director. I think all his years being in the footlights and being on the stage, he is empathetic to what we have to deal with. He is also determined to bring the best out of us. And so that can sometimes feel unending. You know, I mean, he loves to work, and he loves the theater. And so we had a week, when we moved uptown, we had a week of rehearsal. And you might think, oh, well, I've said this before, but it's like, you know, oh, instead of standing here, you stand here, and the light's gonna be like this. But we went back into rehearsal for the week, really going deeper and
God, it was
deeper.
only a week.
Right. But so... And, you know, he sometimes can make actors have smoke come out of their ears, but
he's
it's worth it.
always right. You know, should we try? Oh, I don't know. Okay, you know, I
makes
think
things
to
make
myself, like,
sense.
is this going to work? Is it? And then after, of course, that was it. He's just like,
I'll tell
brilliant.
you, the real truth is I love the theater, and I love actors. And I'm so grateful to ever be able to make a moment work for them that they're struggling with, or I see something that's going to give them great pleasure. And that's just amazing.
So I love this question to follow up. Someone asked to all, can you tell us your favorite moment on stage in the show for each of you?
Mine's The Dream, I think. I have so much fun. It's so much fun to get scared every night. Jodie Snyder, who plays Prima Sarah, is amazing. It's so much fun. It's just such a fun number, and it's, you know, and it's just a fun bit of levity that I love, and we have fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I'll just answer probably in a not expected way. And I actually just got a note today about it from our stage manager, Kat West. I want to give her a shout out because she is the best stage manager, East, West, North, and South. But the moment is the beginning of the second act, which I love, which is Tevye comes out, and it's written in a way that sort of feels very kind of expositional. He's talking to God. Seidel and Model have been married 2 months now. And I thought, well, why is Tevye telling God that? Like, God knows that. And so, it always occurred to me that since the events of the end of Act 1, Tevye and God have not really been so chummy. And so that the beginning of the second act is really Tevye saying, am I going to talk to God again? And so it's a very quiet, still moment, but I just love it because and then he does talk to God, and what he really wants to ask God is, can you please give my son-in-law a sewing machine? And so to me, it's just such a beautiful moment that you could miss it if you but it's in the Broadway version, it's there. And it is one of my favorite moments, but I'm not gonna have it be as long as it has been, because that's the note I got.
Jackie, how about you?
I think when I'm peddling 2 little boys to the 2 youngest daughters. But any moment I'm on stage talking is my favorite moment.
How about listening?
What?
Joel, is there a favorite moment for you in watching the show?
Do You Love Me? And the end of the Act 1, when everything is falling apart, and Tevye says, what do I do? Now what? And that's a blackout, and it's powerful.
There's a question here that's uncanny in that it leads to what you're about to sing. And it's, tell us about the lyric change in If I Were a Rich Man.
Yeah, If I Were a Rich Man. So in our version, it's If I Were a Rothschild. And it's funny, and but it is
Shraga Friedman.
It's Shraga Friedman who went back to the original Sholem Aleichem. And Sheldon Harnick graciously allowed for certain discrepancies between his famous, wonderful version and just a little peppering from the Sholem Aleichem. And that's an example, because there is a story by Sholem Aleichem called If I Were a Rothschild. And so so that just is a little zest, because it zhuzhes me to know that the beginning of the song is a nod not only to the greats who created Fiddler on the Roof, but even all the way back to the man who inspired them to create it, Sholem Aleichem, who talked about Rothschild. And the thing for me, again, as an actor, it's like, when I first read that, it's like, Tevye knows who Rothschild is? That's, it's like that was interesting, because he's a man, he's of the world and in the world, so of course he's living in this strange, maybe removed shtetl in the Pale of Russia, but he's gonna know who a Rothschild is, and that is...
He's gonna have heard about it.
Yeah, he's gonna have heard about it. Use your mic.
He's gonna have heard about it.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So do you think
Who's the director here?
You.
Joel, do you want to ask Steven to sing that song as the director, to sing that song now? Or could you sing that song for us?
Would you be so kind?
I would be so kind, of course. We could not be so kind. Rabbeinu Shalom, hast doch beschaffen a Welt mit armen Leid. Und weiß ich doch, es ist gar nicht kein Schande zu sein ein armer Mann. Aber a größer Covid ist das euch nicht. Was wollt gewinnen so schlecht? Wenn ich wollt ja gehabt, a kleiner Oizer. Wenn ich bin a Rothschild. Ganze Tag wollt ich sich mit die Bumm. Wenn ich bin a reicher Mann. Hand in kaltem Wasser, nicht reingetan. Bumm. Gewollt gehad a Deidelbeitel Geld und gewann a Seidel, Edelmann. Und gewollt mir oi aufgebaut, ein Haus wie ein Palaz, Dafken mitten von der Stadt. Ein Schein am Dach und ein Käumen, was Plasterreich. Ein lange Trepp von Holz wird laufen reif, ein zweiter noch länger läuft ab. Ein dritter läuft, ich weiß noch nicht wie hoch. Und so wird mein Häuf sein voll mit Katschkes und Gänse, die Sonne marsch platzen soll sein. Von dem Krähen wären die euren Miet. Und jeder das heißt Iden, ich hab gelegt ein Ei. Und es heißt noch, als da wohnt ein reicher Jid. Wenn ich bin ein Rothschild, ganze Tag wollte ich sich mit die Boom. Wenn ich bin ein reicher Mann, Hand in kaltem Wasser, nicht reingezogen, bidi, boom. Ich wollte gehabt, a Beitel Geld und gewinn a Seidel, Edelmann. Oh, dies mein Weih, mein Gold, seht schon euch Sagwirte, geht mit der Geide, mit der Beug. Nach der Zimmers, stamm in a Prostentag. Sie wischt dem Schweiß und sie bloß sich, geht schon wie ein Paar. Oi, es geht von ihrer Reich. Krappen alle Diensten, bald ein Jahr. Und jeder Gewehr ich dort wird kommen zu und fragen mir. Punkt wie bei Schleume am Melech. Geht nicht zu mir, ich bete, kratzt die Bord, Reptavia. Sucht das Wort, Reptavia. Auf die Scheiles euch der Rov, die Payes dreht. Bye, 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 bye. Siz was sei kein Schum auf Gemine, sie mein entverhotte Tam. Wer sie's reich, versteht Chazones euch. Wenn ich bin reich, hab ich sich Zeit und ich geh dreimal a Tag in Schule rein. Und ich kauf mir a Stadt bei dem Misrechwand. Und ich lern Schaas und Posken mit die frommen Jiden. Gott in Juven wird das sagen. Efter nur in unser heilig Land. Wenn ich bin a Rothschild, ganze Tag wollte ich sich mit die Boom. Wenn ich bin a reicher Mann, Hand in kaltem Wasser, nicht reingetan, bidi, bum. Gott, was warft von Himmel uns der Mann. Beschließt, ich bleib ein Mann. Was wollt schon gestört bei dir dem Plan? Wenn ich bin ein reicher Mann.
So there's nothing else to say after that other than if you haven't seen this production, you have to see it. If you've seen it again. See it again. It's inspiring. Fiddler, NYC.com, inspiring group and really amazing to be here with everyone. So congrats on a stunning achievement. Thanks, David. Thanks for being here.